everyone. Welcome on in to Drinks with Binks. I'm Julie Stewart-Binks, and we have been so lucky since this show launched in September to have so many incredible guests in the sports realm, athletes, broadcasters, entertainers, and today is very special for me because we have arguably our biggest name on this show. I think he was tricked. He has no idea really what he had in store coming on the show here today. We have MLS Commissioner Don Garber, who has also been a friend of mine since I started covering MLS many years ago, and we're so excited to have you here. Thank you so much for coming on the show.
Happy to be a part of it, supporting your new show.
Thank you, yes.
Try to get a little, we'll tweet about it. We'll throw it on Instagram.
That would be a lot. I need your support, Don.
We do.
I would love those retweets. And you have been so busy because MLS, congratulations, is celebrating 25 seasons, and this is your 22nd season at the helm. It's almost like this is sort of your baby in a way.
Well, you know, when I started, I was a baby.
Yeah.
Now I'm an old man.
You were 25.
But it was,
yeah.
It's been a long, really gratifying ride. It's hard to believe it's been 25 years for the league and north of 20 for me. The sport's growing. There's this weekend's games really just were, whether it's Nashville or whether it was in LA, the two games I attended, great crowds, lots of great players, lots of excitement. Our television ratings were really, really strong, which is always very important, as you well know. It's good. Getting ready to start the second decade and a half.
Wow, that sounds...
2 decades. No, yeah. 25, yeah.
I believe you.
Silver.
Whatever you say, Don. I mean, you are synonymous with MLS, and you mentioned just how many years you've been there as the league has been in this inception. And so on Drinks with Binks, as we discussed, we always have a drink. We let our guests pick what we want to have. And what do we have today, Don?
Well, you know, I didn't know that Drinks with Binks meant alcoholic Drinks with Binks. I thought it was...
That was...
you know, I could have
sad on our part that we
have a Coke. One of our sponsors is sparkling water. I figure it's a long show. We'll start with sparkling water since I think that's what.
Yeah, well, you pick sparkling water. I of course have. Yeah, we'll raid Mom's liquor cabinet over here. We'll get into the tequila. We've got some like bourbon and vodka. Yeah, and we got it all on Drinks with Binks.
I'm ready.
Okay, so let's take a sip. Cheers.
Cheers. What would happen if somebody didn't drink alcohol? It would be non-alcoholic.
We don't have them on the show about it. We're like, nope, no. We it could be non-alcoholic drinks. We always say it doesn't matter if you don't drink alcohol, we can still have a good time.
Right.
Just not as good of a time, I don't think. But no, we've had a lot of coffee and cappuccinos and whatnot. So, Don, you mentioned this weekend seeing the expansion teams of Nashville and Miami, which was exciting, and I thought it was very exciting seeing David Beckham, Liv Tyler, Posh Spice, Victoria Beckham, all in a suite together. How surreal is it for you to see some of these celebrities working with your league?
You know, it's there are a lot of them now, so which is really cool. Some of them are big fans. You could go around the league and not just those that come out for games, but we've got Matthew McConaughey as a part owner of a team. We have Will Ferrell as a part owner of a team. Me and Nomar Garciaparra with the owners and at the game this past Sunday. I think it speaks to the fact that the league is becoming more culturally relevant. Ciara and Russell Wilson owning a piece of Seattle and seeing how excited they were when Seattle wins the championship. The league is driving to have more relevance. In order to have relevance, you sort of have to be culturally meaningful. I was in the box on Sunday, and this hip-hop guy who's very important to sort of drive African-American culture, this guy named Styx, came over to me and he said, "Hey man, I'm a big fan of LA. I want to really get behind your All-Star game, Galaxy and LAFC. I think it's really incredible that in this case, the African-American community in LA is becoming more interested in our sport. I think that has something to do with the following we have there. I mean, Kobe was a big fan, and his support of our league and his support of our sport. So celebrities are mattering. At the end of the day, it is about sort of being meaningful in the community as well.
Right, and you've definitely been meaningful in the community, and you've had a great on-field product, which continues to get better and better as, the quality of the players and the coaches and everything like that. But you mentioned these names, Matthew McConaughey, Ciara, Will Ferrell. Have you gotten to the point where it's normal, or are you still like, wow, this is pretty cool? Yeah.
It is funny, Julia. I'm still the commissioner. So it's kind of weird. Will Farrell is an owner. You know, he doesn't come to board meetings, but when you talk to him, or Drew Carey, who's been around our league for a long time, I think most people don't realize that, you know, just because somebody's a movie star or they're a well-known musician, that they're normal. You know, they're family, they have families, they have wives and kids or husbands and kids, and, you know, they go to games, they like to have a good time, and in the case of those that are involved in our league, you know, they want to see that their business investments are doing well. David Beckham really cares about Inter Miami being successful.
Right.
And so does Will Farrell. I mean, you have a conversation with him, he basically acts no different than any other owner. So for me, when I was younger, it was kind of fun, it was kind of cool. Meeting David in 2006, I was a young guy, it was a long time ago, but now I'm his commissioner, and he's one of my owners, and I have to manage him no different than I manage any other owner, and he needs to behave no different than any other owner, even though he's David Beckham.
So your kids must think you're pretty cool then.
They don't, and neither does my wife, you know.
What, after all of this?
You know, it's funny, I've been around this a long time. You know, I worked at the NFL for a long time. I was on the entertainment side for 5 or 6 of my 17 years there. I was very involved in the Super Bowl halftime show. I was the guy that was involved in bringing Michael Jackson into the fold, the first sort of pop star halftime show. I had Garth Brooks sing the national anthem and spent a lot of time with him over the years. And I think when you're in our business doing what we do on the sort of the suit side, you know, these are relationships that you've got to treat like they're equals, peers, and you've got to manage it in a way where you don't act like a flaming idiot. When
that would be important.
Around them. You're not asking for autographs. You're not,
and especially in LA, it's like no autographs, no pictures. Right. Although, has there been a point you're like, oh man, I'd love to just get this picture?
I have a funny one. Liv Tyler, David at the game on Sunday, he was very emotional. He was very excited. That guy worked his ass off trying to really get this team going. Very, very, very focused. And at the end of the game, I walked over to tell him how well I thought the team did, congratulate him. He said, hey, let's go take a picture. And Liv Tyler took the picture. And I should have had a picture of Liv Tyler taking a picture of us. That would have been
That's
fun.
pretty surreal. That's another marker to know that, okay, I am cool, kids.
Yeah.
All right.
I do have a fun one for you.
Okay, yeah.
You're the interviewer.
No,
but I
keep
do
them coming.
think one of the coolest things I've ever done in and around that sort of world is when David and his wife came to LA, a bunch of the talent agencies put on a party to say LA welcomes the Beckhams, and it was really closed to anybody other than sort of celebrity types and the Galaxy players and 1 or 2 suit types. I was invited, president of the league was invited, a bunch of Galaxy executives were invited, but there were about 250 people there. And I walk in, and there was just about every actor and every cool musical artist that you could imagine, all saying, hey, David, you're an LA guy now. And I remember the entourage was really big at that time. And the cast of Entourage were hanging around, and they're gawking around. There's this actor, there's this celebrity. And my wife and I were big fans. And I said, why don't you go just walk over to Turtle? You know, why don't you walk over to Vince and just say hello? They're hanging out at the bar. She said, no, I could never do that. And I said, come on, let's go say hello to him. And I walked over and basically said, hey, man, like, are you a Galaxy fan? At that time, pre-LAFC. Do you want to, you know, are you excited about soccer? Yeah, we love MLS. And aren't you the commissioner? I said, yeah. They said, oh, man, can we have your autograph? I said, get the hell out of here. Not really. But, you know, Stevie Wonder performed.
That is pretty cool.
Will Smith was there, and he performed with his old partner. You know, it was DJ Jazzy Jeff and Fresh Prince. And there, I remember Tom Cruise out there dancing with David. I remember looking at Beckham and David and his wife, and they were just like, what? You know, what is this going to be our life?
It's like this every single night here. If you play in MLS and you're in LA,
that probably was the most fun of all these years. That was pretty cool.
That's pretty good. But now it's normalized because you're hanging out with celebrities like myself on Drinks with Banks. We're going to have a whole lot more after this break. Stay tuned. Welcome on back to Drinks with Binks. I'm JSB, of course, and we're so thrilled to have MLS Commissioner Don Garber here with us. Very busy week. MLS just kicked off their 25th season, and Don, you've been all over the place doing media nationally on random places like here, and you have had a great week so far because also it's been exciting with Nashville and Miami being a part of MLS, and then going forward, you're planning on adding more teams next year in Austin and Charlotte and beyond to St. Louis, Sacramento. How do you've been a part of the league for so long. What's the one thing you've learned in expanding properly and not doing it too fast, doing it the right way?
Well, we always say that we have the shadow of failed leagues hanging over us. So we've been very, very focused on expanding strategically, finding the right owners, the right cities, the right markets. But now, Julie, it's kind of in many ways, it's taken on a life of its own. Not the expansion process, but the popularity of our clubs. So Nashville is a great example. Mm-hmm. I mean, somebody said to me 2 years ago, even with the success in Nashville, with them being in the Stanley Cup and the way everybody embraced the Predators, that we'd have 60,000 people, and in February, that you'd have Lizzie Hale, this guitarist, yes, this punk rocker playing the guitar right before the start of the game, people freaking out, Jude and the Lion creating this anthem that sort of is reminiscent of the Liverpool You'll Never Walk Alone anthem. All these things sort of happen because the league and our clubs and the sport overall are just more important. And that relevance, that electricity, that mattering to people in their lives, we didn't anticipate happening. And I think that that's just the beginning. Our best days are still in front of us. 6 new teams coming on between now and 22 and 7 new stadiums. That's unprecedented for any professional sports league. And it's not like those leagues that in the past would just add teams and then they'd fold teams. I mean, we've had success from success to success to success in our new markets, and that's something that I think is only going to get bigger and better years to come. Especially
seeing LAFC and Atlanta, the success on and off the field is exciting for people that aren't even MLS fans. And I've been covering the league since 2011. I worked at Fox Soccer Report out of Winnipeg, Manitoba, surprisingly enough. And until now, I don't necessarily cover the league all the time. Yeah, I know, it was real rough. Those things you have to do to start your career. But it was fun getting to cover soccer. But then on the other side now, seeing it from outside of covering the league, it's become part of the daily conversation. And for you, Don, you've had to do so many interviews. You've probably done more interviews than I've done interviewing people. And I gotta say, are you annoyed at this point being asked all the time about promotion relegation?
Yeah, I really am. Are you going to ask me?
Okay. How do you feel about being asked about it?
Well, I used to get asked at every single interview about Miami. And now nobody asks me about Miami anymore. So you just accept it. I've learned, and I've got a great help.
Yeah, we got looking over my shoulder, make sure we get the cue cards.
Dan Quartermanch, our crack PR guy. But it's hard to remember, and it really is actually, Julie. It's hard because Wednesday we had our launch of our 25th season, and there were 300 media people there, and Dan and Molly, your friend Molly,
yep, my roommate.
People sort of walk us through the 8 people that we had as spokespeople, from Beckham to Jorge Mas to other owners, run them through these interviews, 15 minutes at a time, and you don't want to say the same thing 20 different times,
right.
And yet you realize when you're talking to the BBC, they don't really know what you're saying to Drinks with Binks, and they don't know what you're saying to ESPN and Fox and ABC and the like. And it requires a lot of patience and a lot of focus. On promotion relegation, I get asked that not just in every media interview. I spoke to a bunch of business leaders in Nashville, and this was on Saturday. And there was some English guy, and he said, "So, Commissioner, do you think we'll ever have promotion relegation?" I said, "How could we manage that in MLS today? Your team is going to invest $500, $600 million in building a stadium, building out staff, creating a training ground, and that requires." And I know this sounds too businessy, but the reality is, how could that team not be able to play against LA or Toronto or Vancouver or New York with the revenues that are associated with that, at least in the world we live in today? And, you know, in the world of business, they have debt on their stadiums and all sorts of stuff. There's no way the system could support it. And then I reminded him that in Mexico, they just voted last week to eliminate promotion and relegation for 5 years. And I think if you were going to start football or soccer leagues today, you wouldn't have it. But I understand, I accept, and I embrace, because I'm a big fan of global soccer, that the drama of going up and going down is part of the sort of the way the game is played around the world. And who knows, maybe, you know, when you're doing this show and you're doing it live on some, you know, on NBC,
way bigger than
and you
Fubo,
have a million people watching it, right? And you know, you're going to have 10 kids, or no, 10-year-old kids sitting around.
Yeah, definitely not having 10 children.
Then I put it. That's probably true. I put that into the life's a long time. People have said to me when I first joined the game, soccer will never make it, neither will MLS. We proved them wrong. I've said we're likely never going to have promotion relegation. At some point, they might prove me wrong. And you got to have an open mind in life.
But Don, when you say that, it's like you're leaving the door open for all those purists to be like, oh, there's a chance.
Maybe. Not when I'm around, but maybe.
So maybe post
I
Don
truly
Garber.
mean this. Life is a long time. Never thought we'd have soon to be 30 teams. Never thought we'd have almost 25 stadiums. I never thought we'd have the following we do.
Right.
So who knows?
You never know.
You never know.
I mean, the thing is, when I explain it to people that aren't in soccer, it's like saying to Brian Cashman and the Yankees, imagine you guys playing, AAA, whoever, and having spent that much money on Garrett Cole, and now, you're going to lose, the amount of money you say with expansion teams and owners put into the leagues. It just doesn't necessarily work out in this realm. But I will say, when my mom asks me if I want dessert, and I'm like, no, Mom, I'm so full. I just ate all these fries and everything. She orders dessert, and it's just sitting there because it's around. I'm like, all right, fine, I'll have a bite. Because people keep bringing it up, you think, maybe it could enter the realm of possibility.
Not because they bring it up all the time. Truly. I think could there be a world where we have many, many more teams than we do now? And that's not a world that we're contemplating. And that you can build a pyramid that would be sustainable going up and down, where you had stadiums that were all built and financed, and you were able to cross across all the time zones and weather zones in ways where that you'd have success. Maybe you'd have regional competitions. Maybe we have a competition that takes place more regularly against Mexico. Maybe the CONCACAF Champions League is as big as the UEFA Champions League. There's so many things that could happen in the future that we can't contemplate today. But I just find it interesting. There are a lot of people that just say, why don't you have it? And I know you're not asking it for that reason.
I don't care if you have promotion relegation.
People ask it because it's just part of what they're used to.
Right.
They've never thought about the fact we have a players' union, that union agreements that are bargained and that provide minimum salaries and working conditions and some charters and all these things that are part of our relationship with our players. What happens if those players on that team go down to another league that doesn't have the same requirements?
Agreed.
I could give you 100 examples of that. And then smart people have said to me, Grant Wall has sent it to me once, I know you interviewed him, I'm sure we could figure it out. And I said, good luck. You spend your time doing it. I'm not spending my time doing that.
Yeah, it sounds like you had too many Mezcal Negronis on the show with that. It just sounds exhausting, to be honest. To be like, okay, you got to add all these teams, whatever. But you mentioned Liga MX, and I know that you guys having an All-Star game against them this year. What would be ideal for you in terms of that relationship with MLS? Like, what would be your ultimate goal? Getting closer, more competition. There's more competitive matches. So think about where we were. And most people don't remember this. We had something called Superliga, I think, in the early 2000s. Then we had something called Interliga in and around 2005, 2006. And then we started getting the Champions League becoming more important for us and Liga MX. And now we then went to Leagues Cup, and now we're going to have a larger Leagues Cup. I think you're going to see more meaningful competition. We're getting to recognize that if Mexico, their league and our league, the new Canadian League, and maybe some of the Caribbean and Central American leagues get more valuable and more important,
then maybe we could become more relevant and more meaningful in global football.
Right.
I'd like to see CONCACAF be as valuable or as important or influential as CONMEBOL or even UEFA in time. In order to do that, the two big leagues need to get closer together.
Right. Especially as we look toward the World Cup in 2026, and maybe Canada might be there. Probably, maybe the U.S.
Well, they're going to automatically qualify for in 26. They will be there.
That's why we have the commissioner here on the show, and we're not even drinking alcohol. We'll be back after this. Welcome on back to Drinks with Binks. We are so thrilled to be having MLS Commissioner Don Garber here with us today. So busy taking his time out to be on a show and help us increase our ratings. So that means a lot that we can just, put my name against yours.
Was that you doing that orange? The juice there? Was that you? Or was that?
I wish. Yeah, that is stock footage that we have from Getty Images. But before we get into a little game I want to play with you, I got to ask you this question that is very controversial. It's the top of my mind. How do you feel between people saying MLS and the MLS?
Oh, man. I don't understand how people say the MLS.
Okay.
I'd rather them say that than the MSL or MSL. Yeah. But yeah, I don't understand that. It's not that hard, right?
Right.
But you think about it, the National Football League, not National Football League, but not the Major League Baseball.
Right. It's MLB is the one that's as close to yours.
There's got to be some grammatical thing that I don't know as to when the "the" goes and when it doesn't go.
So then have you, with some of your new partners and your owners that maybe weren't in the know, if they say the MLS, you're like, whoa.
No, I just realized just one more person saying the MLS, letting it go.
Just let it. So now you've let it go.
Yeah, I let it go.
Because people like Alexi Lawless, like they patrol Twitter.
Oh, no,
and they're like, no.
Yes.
Okay. So
he's spending too much time on Twitter.
Yeah, he's definitely
Alexi is the guy who's flying
time
on the plane. I'm 30,000 feet. What can I entertain you with?
Yeah.
Why would you do that?
Well,
read a good book, watch a movie, talk to the person next to you.
Yeah, and
Don't
he gets a lot of hate.
me.
He gets a lot of trolls too, but he likes that.
Yeah.
That's part of the
That's
game.
True.
Okay, so no the MLS. Take out the. And on that note, we are going to play a game called Name. What is that game? Name That Commissioner. Because we have a commissioner here, so we thought we'd play this. So what we're going to do is...
I'm not prepared for this, so if I really mess this up...
Yeah, I'm sure if this is pretty bad, we'll make sure you can edit it. Yeah. Okay, so I'm going to give you the name of a commissioner. You're going to put it on your head. It's like the game Heads Up. And then I'm going to read some clues, and Dawn's going to have to guess who this is.
This is a commissioner like in... Or is it like Commissioner Gordon with Batman?
It's a commissioner. I'm not going to give away any clues, okay? There's not many commissioners.
FDA commissioner.
Okay, so don't, just put this on your head. Don't look through it or anything like that. Okay. So this commissioner...
Adam Silver.
I didn't even ask you anything.
It reflected through the light. You got to do another one.
Dawn, okay, we don't allow that kind of on here.
Hand it to me this way.
That's
Here you go.
Okay. So what you're gonna? That is not good. Okay.
Okay.
I'm now. Okay, so now we're starting with this. This commissioner was portrayed as a glitchy animated robot on South Park.
Oh boy.
This commissioner was willing to sacrifice his league's tax exemption, which also spares him heaps of criticism over his $40+ million a year salary.
I know who this is. He's a really good buddy of mine. He's a good guy. He doesn't get enough credit. Roger gets not enough credit for who else? Roger Goodell. Roger,
we got it. Okay, so
these are really hard jobs, Julie.
Yeah.
So
okay, so
he's not a robot. He's a really good guy.
I know
he's got a hard job. He's doing a great job.
We got to stop giving him flack. But so you know him. What's one thing you've learned from him?
I started at the NFL the same month that he did. First of all, he loves his job, loves his league, very focused, has one of the most difficult jobs on the planet. You have so many, like all commissioners, so many different constituents. Mm-hmm. But, football is such a part of the fabric of American football and the NFL of our society that you almost can't win. So people, and he's actually a really good guy, good family guy. He's got a wonderful wife and kids.
Yeah.
He's a good dad. He's a good athlete.
So then,
shape.
in like one word, what's one thing you've taken from Roger Goodell that you've like, I learned
Courage.
courage.
That guy's got some guts. He's a gutsy guy.
Okay. Very great.
I know that sounds so,
intel.
but he really is.
No, I asked for one word, and courage was the word. Okay, so don't cheat on this one, Dawn. Play the game. So put this up against your head. Okay, and look at me. Eyes over here. This commissioner is one of the longest serving commissioners beginning in 1939.
Ooh.
This commissioner has a deep commitment to ridding his corrupt city of crime. At night, he gets the attention of his partner by shining a giant signal into the sky.
Oh, I'm a big fan. Yeah, I just saw the Joker on the plane coming
Oh,
back.
yeah.
Commissioner Gordon.
Yes.
So you want to hear something
ding,
funny?
ding.
You know, when I
Yes.
first took this job, people would say to me, "Oh, you know, this is Commissioner Garber," and then some people would say, "What? Commissioner of what?" You know, because they didn't know soccer or anything about Major League Soccer. I said, "Are you like Commissioner Gordon?" But I'm old enough to know the old Batman. Went,
Right,
Remember
the
that
boom
Batman?
pow, yeah, Adam West.
Yeah.
That was the good old days. That's the good stuff.
That's right.
All
But you know what the big Batman thing is? I think I'm right about this. Hans Zimmer did some Batman soundtrack stuff, and Hans Zimmer just did our new anthem. Have you heard
nice
our new
segue.
anthem?
Yes.
Super cool.
Very cool. And you
So-
know I was a big fan of the old one, too.
Yeah, I was.
I
I
tweeted
had
about
to
it
get
quite a bit.
pushed to kind of move from
I love
there to
anthems.
the.
You can't really go wrong. Okay, the last one, all right? Don't look like no cheating again. I mean, that might be relevant, but we'll see. Okay, this commissioner graduated from Harvard Law. His last name is a combination of both a noun and the first name of a popular cartoon character from the prehistoric times.
Whoever wrote that, it was pretty good.
That was me.
I got that
I
one.
actually wrote it. I wrote that.
Rob Manfred.
Yes.
And another
Rob
guy
Manfred.
really has a tough job, under a lot of pressure now. But I was asked at a meeting the other day, what would you have done any differently than what he had to do dealing with a very difficult and complicated thing? And I just said, listen, I don't know that I do anything differently, but let me tell you, he loves the league, tough job, so many different constituents, you almost can't win. I have this great line that when I left the NFL, Julie, Paul Tagliabue, who was the commissioner then, had an exit interview, and he gave me, so I was young, I was 39 years old, puts his arm around me and he says, "Hey son, let me give you one piece of advice. Your job as commissioner is to keep the owners who hate you away from the ones who are undecided." So that's the advice that you need to
Don't
have.
let
These
them
are
bring
tough.
them down.
These are tough. Even in
Okay.
our little league, they're tough jobs.
Okay, but I will ask you one question on very tough jobs, understandable. We would never know what it's like. But if this situation was in MLS, hypothetically, a situation of, a magnitude of cheating for a champion, what would you do?
I that's such a good question, and I could imagine
Thank
that
you.
if I answered it the way you'd want me to, headlines, drinks with beaks would be all around
Come on,
the world.
Dawn, I need
and
something, okay?
I'm not going to answer that
Come
question.
on, we got to get investors on the
I
show,
will
all right?
tell you that I don't know that I can provide my own judgment without being engaged as he was in the process, in the beginning, in the middle, of the end. I know that it is so, no commissioner thinks about anything more than the integrity of the game, more than all of us do. That's just what our number one job is, and it's an impossible thing to work itself through, and I feel for Rob. I really do.
You do, yeah.
Yeah, I really do.
But what do you think about the criticism that he's faced with?
I
just
think
not
that when
having a hard line?
it's kind of that comment I made about keep the ones who are undecided away from the ones who have already decided to hate you. I say to my board and I say to my friends and my family, my job is to please as many of the people as I can, understanding that I will piss most of them off. As long as 51% of them support me, from an ownership perspective, I keep my job. you've got to understand that fans are constituents, players are constituents, owners are constituents, communities are, our own internal staff, history judges us, and we've got to be thinking about all those different factors when you make a decision. And at the end of the day, you got to put your head on the pillow at night, know that you've been thoughtful, you've done your research, you've been engaging with as many people as you can talk to and get advice. And at the end of the day, you're left there, your name is on the ball. And you're judged by the decisions you make. Easier for me, Julie, because I built it, right? But somebody else is going to come in years from now, sooner as opposed to later, and they're going to have to make decisions that are going to affect the way they're perceived about what their view of what the league needs to be. That could be about competition issues, promotion, relegation, where we fit within the global landscape, what do we spend on players, how do we manage discipline. But for me, that focus has been on all of that, but also on building the league. So that's an unusual dynamic. No other commissioner has really had to worry about managing a league as it's developing and growing because their leagues are already built.
Right. That sounds like an answer from a commissioner. We've got more of those coming up after this break. Welcome on back to Drinks with Binks. I'm Julie Stewart-Binks, and we have MLS Commissioner Don Garber here with us, sipping on some sparkling water. We would have wine in any other occasion, I guess, or if he had been told he could drink alcohol, but it's probably for the best because...
It's 5 o'clock somewhere.
Yes. It's, I think actually almost... Well, this is coming on at 8 p.m., okay? So it is past that. But Don, it would be remiss if we had you here and didn't ask about, obviously what's going on in the world right now with coronavirus that has become the biggest news story internationally, and it has affected many different leagues, different sports. I know that MLS has been working with a task force with a CDC and other leagues. Where are you guys with this right now?
Well, it's very real time, and the best thing that I could say is we, like all businesses, are trying to be on top of it and as front of it as we possibly can be, knowing that what decisions we make today could be changed tomorrow. I literally came here from a task force meeting in our office and left the conference room to walk across town to see you.
I'm really glad that I interrupted that meeting.
The meeting ended when I left.
Okay.
Listen, this is concerning. To be fair, new ground. We talked about, a number of different things that I think would be interesting. Todd Durbin, who you've met, runs our competition group, said, this sort of is a little bit like how we were together as a group after 9/11, which happened in such real time and forced us to come together as a league, organize thought and strategy and policy out of the league office, understanding that we had many, many other constituents, from our employees to our players to all of our teams to the stadiums, some of which then that we own, some that we were tenants in. And you've got to have the right people in place that are dealing with the issues that require lots of thought. So we have a medical group, we have a security group. Joanne Neal, who's the president of the league, who oversees administration and HR and lots of other things strategically, is engaged with leading this group so that we know and can come together every single day on decisions we have to make. How are we going to manage the international releases and the FIFA date at the end of the month? We have lots of people that are traveling every day and traveling internationally and domestically. Are we going to continue to allow that to happen? How are we going to manage the GA Cup, where we're bringing in a bunch of international teams? How do we manage our own experiences with how we deal in New York, which might be different than dealing in other markets? And the one thing that I have to say today is that if this was something that would be airing a month from now, I think the answers as to what we do will be very different because it's developing. The CDC, the Center for Disease Control, is communicating effectively, as is a task force in the White House. And all of us know that this is not going to be federally driven. It's going to be locally driven, and the local news is developing as we speak.
Right. And so because, many leagues and many places have taken their cues from CDC and from the federal government, because that is the information we're getting. You do mention that it's moving at such a rapid pace that we're learning hour by hour. How much of an onus or responsibility as a league, as MLS, do you guys take, even specifically, we need to be concerned about our players, our teams, our fans, regardless of what CDC says?
That's a good question, Julie. We talked about that. I mean, the best thing that we could do is ensure that we are getting the best possible timely information in real time so that we could make decisions that are in the best interest of all of our constituents, fans, employees, players, et cetera. And we as a league, and no different than the other sports leagues, have to get that information. You can't get it from the news. Mm-hmm. You have to get it from the authorities, if you will, that are dealing with this on a day-to-day basis. But we're recognizing that it's changing as we speak.
Yeah.
And we will make the right decisions for all of our constituents, regardless as to where the government, if you will, is coming in. But listen, if the government decides that they're going to limit public assembly, then we're going to have to adjust to that. And that's what's been happening in a handful of cities throughout Europe. As just an example.
Yeah. Don, you are...
We went from sort of the fun and talking about Batman.
That's what we do on Drinks with Binks. Yeah. We're all over the place as that's what life is. But Don, you're a commissioner, but you're also, you're a human. And what keeps you up at night when something like this is directly potentially going to affect your league?
It starts with it not being able to. It starts with the unknown. All of us are citizens of the planet, right? There are a lot of things we don't have control over, and a lot of things that we don't know that are going to affect our daily lives. I had lunch with my daughter, who's just coming back from maternity leave and has a 3-month-old baby. And you start thinking about how does all this affect your family. But at the end of the day, Julie, how does it affect all of us? And I think that there are business concerns, and then there's humanity concerns, and then there are overall sort of the impact on our life concerns. And, I know that we'll all get through this. I'm a student of history. We've gotten through terrible wars. We've gotten through terrible conflict and diseases, and we've gotten through terrorist attacks. And I can remember during all of that thinking that, life will never be the same. And in some ways they aren't, but in many ways they do get normalized, and this will get normalized also.
Yeah. I mean, I think we're all just hoping, no one's hoping that this is a big deal. Everyone wants everyone to be safe and to be healthy, and for this to definitely go away. And before we go to break, I have one quick question. In Europe, they've had to deal with, closing of postponing games and having fans not watching games. What have you taken from what they've gone through and what they've been dealing with, or even if you've even had conversations with people? What have you taken that you've learned?
The speed in which they acted. I mean, they acted really fast. They closed down their stadiums to fans in Italy pretty quickly. They postponed just very recently. And they acted quickly. So I am hoping that doesn't happen, and praying that doesn't happen, because I think it would, if that's happening, it would probably affect lots of other public events that take place. But boy, they acted pretty quickly. Mm-hmm.
All right. Okay. Well, we're going to take a quick break. We're going to have more to come on Drinks with Binks. Hey guys, welcome on back to Drinks with Binks. I'm JSB. We've got MLS Commissioner Don Garber here on the couch, and I think I'm now encouraging him to probably reach for the alcohol at this point, because my questions are pretty tough here on the program. That's the good one to take, I think.
Yeah, you have that hidden from me, but I'll...
I would have wanted to have some booze and offer you shots, but I'm sure my boss and one of your colleagues, of course, Dan Cordemonch, would cancel this interview. So I won't do that at this point. Next time. But speaking of, television and TV rights, you guys have the TV rights coming up with MLS, and it's like an exciting time because since you had the last round of rights, so much has changed in our society and how people consume media and how people watch games and how appointment viewing is so important for games.
Right.
And I've worked with two of your broadcasters, Fox and ESPN, and I think I'm probably going to be working with your next broadcaster, Fubo TV, because I'm hoping that this is the moment you announce you're going to be doing a long-term deal with us. So, all jokes aside, what have you learned since the last rights were negotiated?
Nothing that everybody in this room and in this business doesn't think about every day, which is there's never really been a disruption quite like this in the way people are engaging with content. And it goes back to, if you think about it as relates to the sports industry, our industry has been driven by that disruption in the past. Cable television is launched, and all of a sudden the ESPNs of the world, the TNTs of the world need content, so are buying sports rights. And domestically, that's driven a lot of opportunity and value and exposure. Around the world, it's been even bigger than that because satellite was being launched, because they almost bypassed cable. And now today, you are sort of living in a world, and my phone's not here, where the way that people, whether it's people of my generation or older or kids today, are able to be portable in how they engage with the things that matter to them. That could be games, it could be betting, sports betting. It certainly can be the shows that they love and watch. And now an entire industry is exploding, delivering all of that, whether that's Fubo, or it's Netflix, whether it's Apple, or whether it's ESPN Plus or NBC Sports Gold, and et cetera, et cetera. So all of that requires live content to connect with the consumer who that company wants to have a relationship with. And that relationship used to be third party. The relationship would be with your cable operator. And then the cable operator would go out and sell subscriptions. And the cable operator needed to have channels, and those channels were driven in many ways by sports. Now that relationship is one-to-one. And very, very valuable for the Fubos of the world. It's very valuable for content holders, because we want to have a lifetime relationship with that fan and talk to them and engage with them and know who they are, know where they live, know what they like, know whether they're time shifting, meaning taping and watching differently.
I think the government knows all that information.
Yeah, they probably do,
now.
and so do some of the large social media companies. But so all of it is all very, very, in my view, very, very positive. Our rights are up in 2022 after the 2022 season. Confident in a fruitful and engaging future. But,
I mean, you must be licking your chops because, I mean, for people like us or any streaming services or cable broadcasters, you need rights. Like, because you need appointment viewing. Like, this is what will tell people you watch us at this point. So you must be like, well, look what we got.
And we also have, too, Julie, you know, our consumer, our fan is young. They're diverse. They're globally connected, so because they're soccer fans overall, and they're engaging with global content, which, as you know, you can get on your mobile device. It's not geo-blocked, if you will, to a local community, if you will. So we have this unique relationship with consumers and fans that they're going to want to have.
Right.
So if Fubo's got $1 billion,
I think we do.
425th Avenue, dgarber@whatever.com, come send me a note, write the check.
Dave, that's the deal. I think we don't shake hands anymore, but I think we just did it, and that means I think I just brokered this deal. My 10% commission fee, Dave Gandler.
Big one.
All right. Well, this is great. Now I can sign a lease for an apartment. We'll be back after this. Welcome back to Drinks with Binks. We've got MLS Commissioner Don Garber here. We've talked so much soccer, but we want to know more about Don, the person. Don, because
the
it's always
accent coming in.
Did I? Oh no, I've been trying to get rid of it. But we always, you know, as mentioned, symbiotic with MLS. But what would be something that would surprise us about who you are outside of soccer?
Well, I'm a New Yorker that owns a farm in western New Jersey that until recently we raised cows and pigs.
Wow.
and we were really bad farmers. I owned it with a bunch of buddies of mine. The pigs used to run away all the time. But,
how would you even have time?
I didn't. We have a guy that helps us with that, but he was not a very good farmer.
Sounds like it.
And I'm a pretty outdoorsy guy, which I grew up in Queens, so I grew up in an apartment building, and I've traveled to some pretty faraway places doing some pretty cool outdoorsy type stuff. So I think that would surprise people.
Right. And you said, someday when you aren't commissioner or even in your spare time, like, what are your other goals in life? Like, what else do you dream of doing?
It's a good question, Julie. I've been doing this I've been in sports for 34 years. So I'm at the end of my arc, if you will, and trying to figure out sort of where all that ends up going. I'm very involved in a number of different charities. One of them is in a veterans charity. I'm on the board of a cancer hospital here in New York City, so I probably would want to spend more time on that. I travel 120 days a year. Wow. So more so than most humans. Even, going forward, probably even more with all these new teams coming in. So, I hope I've left a good impact on not just the industry, but our sport, but also have led lots of people and nurtured them in their careers. I take a lot of pride in that. I think people who work in Major League Soccer are really focused not only on the goal of building the league, but really care about each other, and I take pride in that. I believe that leadership is about sort of, leaning in and ensuring that we're focused on the things that matter. We have a very diverse organization. We've got a female president. We've got almost half of our employees are women. We've got more Latinos and people of color than most other companies. I take a lot of pride in that. Hopefully that is something that's influenced people's lives, and maybe I could do a little more of that going forward.
You've done a great job with it, and we do have to go to break, but I will say, even from day one in the industry, you always made me feel welcome, and you championed my work, and you made me feel respected, and like that you wanted me to be there, and I felt that through all of your players and your teams, and I will speak so highly of MLS, not just because you're here and I'm pandering to you also, but because I've also worked in so many other leagues, and I've never felt the respect or just the welcomeness that I found with MLS.
Well, I
so I think that starts from the top. So, yes, including Fubo, even better than here. We'll be back after this. Well, we have had a great time here with MLS Commissioner Don Garber. Thank you so much. I've had a great time. I know I have driven you now to continue drinking after this, but it means a lot to be able to go through difficult topics, fun topics, and MLS, guys. You can watch it on Fox, ESPN, MLSsoccer.com. He's at the Soccer Don and Fubo in the future. We'll see you guys next time.